it's not as, it's more higher, or there's more power band in the meat, so you don't need to worry about screaming it as much. It's really easy to keep a 1000 in power band, is what I'm trying to say, versus keeping a 600 in power band. I found it always easier on my R1 to just, you know, click it down 1 or 2 and you got plenty of meat, more than enough power, where the bike will either wheelie or spin out anyway, so you don't have to scream the engine as hard around turns. And that makes it kind of fun. That's a good thing to have when you're on the road, or you're in a back road, twisties. Now I will say the 600 is going to take those turns easier. It's going to have an easier time navigating that road versus the 1000, just because of its lightness, yeah, that's a word, because of its lightness and its more agile frame. But again, the 1000 is not like it's a massive disadvantage there. It's still a good handling bike, and on a high-speed sweepers, I feel more comfortable on a leader bike, honestly, than a 600 bike with a lot more legs and a lot more low-end power, a lot more torque. It's just gonna pull through, in my opinion, a little better. Now, if it's a more tight road, definitely want a 600. If it's a really tight road, you want a motard. This is like, you can almost think of the motard as like the even more downscale version of that. It's just an extremely good handling machine, and you're sacrificing power to get that, and you know, it's worth it, in my opinion. A suggested 10 isn't fun on a 600 or 1000, but on a motard, this is a fun little turn right here. You can come into it, roll into the throttle nice. And that's not very aggressive at all how I took that turn, but it would feel very aggressive to do that on a 600 or 1000. Following it. Getting better at that. I used to not be able to go around turns for shit on the back wheel. But when you're traveling down the highway with a 600, it's usually revving pretty damn high, and that can be obnoxious, you know. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not it's more like annoying to you, because the 600s usually going down the highway at highway speeds, you're going to be somewhere around 8 to 10,000 RPMs pretty consistently, you know. With the gearing I had on mine, I used to quite often be around like 11,000 going down the highway, just because I had a 1 down 2 up. Kind of took that situation and made it even worse, but you know, I thought it was worth it for the power gain. But there is something about riding a bike that feels a little more stress than a bike that isn't. Now, if you're really going for a while, that could be a little obnoxious. For something like 1000's only around 5,000 or 6,000 or so going down the highway. If you shift it into high gear, I mean, I think I used to leave mine around 7,000 or so, usually going down the highway. I rarely use 6th gear on my R1. I remember it was the bike spent a lot of time in 5th gear or so on the highway. Just didn't feel necessary to use that gear. Always sand in the road right here. Oh, I ain't get around it. There we go. This is tar on the road too. Everyone always asks what these squiggly lines are. It's just where they filled in cracks on the road, and honestly, the grip's pretty good. It's not that bad of a deal. If they're wet though, it's the other way. Especially if you're going to do some long traveling, you had a bunch of gear. You know, leader bike is just, with its torque and everything else, I think it's just a better bike for those kind of situations. You know, I'm not trying to give Chase a hard time. I'm really not. In fact, what I'm going to say is really nothing I encourage people to do, but Chase doesn't always ride the shit out of his bike. So he just doesn't, you know. He's got a video or two where I think he's blasting pretty fast on the old 600, but I was younger and stupider, so I couldn't really speak to the power of the two bikes and how they differ on a far end, just giving everything you got kind of deal. You know, people always used to laugh when people would say, I always used to laugh, people would tell me, oh, you'll never need that much power. Why do you need a 600 or 1000? You can never actually use that much power. And it's like, well, if I take it full throttle to red line in multiple gears, I'm pretty sure I used all the engine had. I'm not saying I took, you know, full on advantage of the chassis or anything like that, or, you know, wasn't knee down sideways in a turn like a pro racer or some shit, but Same time, I know what the 600 will do, what 1,000 will pretty much do, and I've ridden multiple other bikes, and I was also 19 back then most of the time, 19, 20, so my stupid acidness was much higher, and I would try really fucking crazy shit that would get you killed if you continually do it. So I'm saying, not saying do it, I'm just saying this is, you know, okay, enough of that. The point is that I on multiple occasions when I had a 600, I would fucking top it out all the time, man. That bike used to max out around, indicated around 150, I think, but with the 1 down 2 of gearing, I imagine it was more like 140 something, maybe like low 140s, maybe even higher 130s. It got there pretty good. I'd say once you start getting over about 130 miles an hour or so, you can definitely feel it falling on its face a bit. My leader bike, I think I used to hit stupid ass speeds of like 100 and indicating 170. I don't know how fast that actually was. You know, it's hard to say. You know, bike speedos are known not to be the most accurate things in the world. Yeah, there's definitely like a good, you know, I guess 30 or so, 30, 40 mile an hour difference between their top speeds. Not you need to be doing either one either way, but just saying if you are stupid and you want to die, that one is capable of doing it a lot faster than the other, and the other is just the power of the bikes is obviously very different. You know, you're talking about more torque, more power, more speed, and I mean, the acceleration of a 1000 is pretty nutty. You get used to a 600 where, I mean, I would ride the fucking ragged shit out of my 600. I rode that thing hard, and I went to 1000 and I even was like, wow, this is a lot more fucking balls. And of course, I was very stupid, so I rode the shit out of it. I actually, what I liked about when I went to 1000, it was, man, dropping the clutch on that thing at traffic lights and getting it to spin out the tire really hard. That was fun. It takes a nice finessing of the clutch to really do that properly without looping it out or just spinning the shit out of it, just launching it. Stock ride height, stock swing arm bike, and I would launch the fuck out of that thing. But that bike's pull, when you were on it hard, was just gnarly. You'd launch the damn thing, and I'm saying like up to 50 miles an hour, you'd be riding the clutch, feathering it, with the back tire sort of squilling the whole time, trying to keep it from wheeling and trying to keep it from spinning too much. And it seems like hell on the clutch. You feel bad for the whole bike because it would just be like, wah! And you'd be clutch riding it out to about 50 miles an hour, like I said, and man, the thing would be screaming. And then you hit third gear or second gear, you couldn't quite full throttle it. Once you're about third gear, just a little bit into third, you could really full throttle. Even then, you better be really up on it because it still kind of wants to lift, but you could control it a lot better at that speed. And you could, the fucking bars just be shaking the whole time. You know, they'd be like that, just going this minor shake. And a lot of people would freak out, and they'd, you know, you could force that into a tank slapper if you're not careful. That shaking would start kind of going away after about 130 or so, 140. And then you just keep going. And I remember the wind coming into your face, no matter how well your helmet fits, it seems like it smashes it so hard against your cheeks that your nose sometimes would touch the front visor. That was always interesting. It was a weird experience. And I've also had my head get pinned, just thunk, to the gas tank because of the wind coming over your head. It's just so heavy. Yeah, your head would end up just froze to the gas tank, just sitting down there like, okay, whatever, this is what this is how it's gonna go. Fuck, man, that bike doesn't really start falling on its face, so you start getting over 160, I'd say. And then it doesn't really fall on its face. You can just feel it progressively letting off of power, not having near the pool the higher you go. And also, again, totally unnecessary. I know that, and that's kind of like my whole point's not to like debunk chase. I just want to throw in other points. Again, not that I condone it, but if you're that kind of person who really wants just to have the fastest, meanest fucking thing you can, leader bikes are pretty badass. I mean, there's about nothing on the street that's going to get you until you're going, you know, pretty stupid fast. Then there's a lot of big cars, like, you know, 600, 700 horsepower cars that will walk away from you at speed. But from down low, you're kind of like on an ultimate machine. If you like getting looks or just having something different, I mean, you pull the bike night and like 90% of the bikes are 600s and you're on a leader bike, that's kind of badass, you know. Stands out a bit. 600 is really all the fucking power you'll need. I thought, you know, a 600 will actually pull wheelies from lower RPMs. It's hard to get a 1000 to pull really good fucking wheelies from down low. A A 600 seems like it wants to wheelie up at lower speeds. With 1,000, with its gearing, you just got to be going faster. And like, although I'll say with 1,000, you can do like 70-mile-an-hour wheelies in second gear by just throttling the shit out of it. And I used to clutch it just because it made it a little bit quicker. But I remember, like, yeah, just pulling the bike up without going all crazy on it. You could just pin it and it would fucking come up. They're both great bikes with different things. Chases right at 600 will do everything you really want it to do. I do find them a little bit more fun to ride quite often because of the nimbleness of them. The power is still plenty. I would say it would be nice to have more, but you know, there's some good in-between intermediate bikes around 750 or mid 600cc bikes that can do pretty good stuff. So there's definitely options out there if you want something kind of in the middle. Yamaha's new FZ09 is definitely a very sort of in-between bike with torque kind of like 1,000 would have, but power of like a 600. But alright, it's super windy, I'm gonna go. Later. Let's let go, Chris. Alright, I was